Ey, Kevin,
Ja.
siehst du mich?
27 Sekunden.
Ja, seh dich, Digga.
Und
Hier
oh.
oben auf dem Berg. Warte bitte. Kann man das. Oh geil, das kann man sogar kopieren, warte. Digga.
Das
Das ist der
Event
Platz,
beginnt
Digga. Du
gleich.
Pisse!
Ja,
Das
es
hier
beginnt
6.
jetzt gleich,
Komm, Nick,
Leute.
komm her.
2
Bleib hier.
Sekunden.
Scheiß Hoden, Alter.
Ich hoffe, hier wird wenigstens noch alles dunkel gemacht.
Ey, lol. Lol, hier kannst du dich sogar noch umändern hier.
Na, ich weiß. Das Event beginnt, Nick. Ich glaube, der Anfang ist aber langweilig, Leute.
Ich bleib jetzt hier oben, Digga. Ich bin über euch.
Warte.
Ey, Kevin, seht ihr mich über euch?
Ja, das kann ich nicht machen. Das sind die ganzen Leute, die jetzt heute hier das singen. Die Moderatorin.
Aber ihr seht mich über euch.
Gerade so.
Das haben wir entspannt hier irgendwie.
Wenn ihr über Hip-Hop und unterdrückte Schwarze kann, dann kommen wir dieses Mal an. Weil natürlich. Und wenn ihr es unten lesen wollt, könnt ihr zwischen mal Pause machen. Das ist Bon B.
Boah, Baba, es funktioniert.
Fast.
Was geht ab, Lan?
Wo bist du denn?
Seht ihr mich?
Ach, da. Und jetzt siehst du die Leinwand nicht so.
Ist der blöd? Ja, Nick möchte die Hauptattraktion sein. Ach, geil. Ach, das ist jetzt so ein Event gegen Rassismus oder so. Kev. Nick.
Ja, wer ist das? Schon Einladung gekriegt, keine Ahnung, wer das ist.
Kevin.
Ja?
Geht's in diesem Event gegen Rassismus?
Ha.
Ja oder nein?
Ja.
Ja, dann mache ich nicht mit. Spaß.
Boah. Wen alles? Rein theoretisch kann ich auch Tina fragen.
Das alles wieder ändern. Also ich hab's halt zu Melissa fragt jetzt am Punktedach.
Hast du wenigstens 4 gefragt, oder?
Ich habe erstmal nach 2 gefragt und Nina habe ich nach Talent gefragt. Den würde sie dann auch auf dem schnellsten Weg zufügen.
Du musst ja extra loslaufen. Mal eine Insta-Story machen.
Ich mache ein bisschen Button-Training. Nix, siehst du mich? Bisschen Arschtraining.
Nick überhaupt noch da?
So what happens is in a court of law, it tends to lean towards the policeman's point of view, right? In this case, we saw very clearly what happened. I think the other thing is due to the fact that everyone was at home, basically, during this time period in relation to the coronavirus. You couldn't avoid it, right? It was on every television station. It was on every social media platform. Everywhere you turn, you were constantly hit upside the head with this message. You see in the interaction.
Naja, ich hoffe mal, dass es beginnt so schnell wie möglich. Es wird langsam immer dunkler hier. Fällt es dir auch auf, Kevin?
Was denn?
Dass es hier allgemein ein bisschen dunkler wird?
Ja.
So sieht das ja schon mal ein bisschen anders aus, ne, Schatz?
Ja.
All right, so most people, when they hear the term defund the police, they tend to think of police department.
Dann zeige ich noch 2, 3 Runden oder so.
Defunding the police means that in certain
Duos. Für euch nur das Live-Event zeigen. Mit Kevin, den Superstar. Und Nick da oben.
Okay, der ist geil. Alter, Kevin, die Musik zu schicken.
Was ist?
Sieht schlecht
Auf
aus.
alles, Digga, der ist so geil.
Gleich verwenden.
Sonst hast du da meine
Was ist,
Bio.
Kevin?
Ich bin alles gut.
Was soll ich schreiben? Live-Event?
In Fortnite. Schaut euch.
there's not employment opportunities, right? There's not a lot of social services, and people are going to do what they need to do to take care of themselves and their families. When the community has
Naja.
more opportunities for mobility, then they tend to be a less strain on the government.
Nick, warum bist du heute schon zu Hause? Ist heute schon der 30.? Ne, der 29. erst. Nick. Warum kriege ich gerade so viele Anfragen? Ich kann ja noch ein bisschen Skin wechseln. Könnt ihr auch mal alle meine Skins sehen. Fängt hier unten an. Oder er leider schon da oben. Ich glaube, ich nehme den mit. Oh, die Flügel sind hässlich. Die Flügel muss er ja abnehmen. Aber das passt schon eher.
Cat, was sagst du zu der? Ja, das siehst du.
Oh, ich schaff das jetzt ab.
Wo kann ich zu euch?
Alles gut, ich gehe da wieder runter. Ich werde das Event weiterhin zeigen. Und moin. Ich kann euch Kommentare schreiben.
Fortnite.
they're proud of you, you know, and that's really what matters, you know. The change starts at home, you know, so as long as you have a cohesive structure in what you're doing, you have everything you need to go out there and conquer the world. And for those that don't, there's a community of people here to help you. So you can go to places like morethanavote.org. There are many different places that will encourage you, inform you, and they will put you with groups of people that feel like you, that are ready to take action. So no one has to go about this alone if they want to do it.
We're stronger together. People have been saying it, but that has much more meaning that we are in a movement, not just this moment. MB,
Siehst du was, Kev?
always a pleasure. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Keep fighting the good fight.
Keep up the good fight.
Nein.
Geht's los?
Dürfte gleich losgehen.
Also von mir
Nächster Gast, ich glaube, es kommt noch ein bisschen Gelaber und ich hoffe, es beginnt bald richtig.
Hast du auch schon mal Abonniert Tibo geguckt?
Beim Marsch.
She also has a comedy special highlighting her Nigerian roots, and she's an amazing podcaster. Let's welcome in Yvonne Orji, everyone. You have such a beautiful way of making things funny, giving us our medicine with some candy, right? The humor and the healing. You bring all of that to the space. And right now,
Nick?
across this country and how everyone is so grateful.
Also, ich hoffe mal, dass jetzt hier
Nick?
langsam was wird.
Nick?
Oh, ruf doch nicht die ganze Zeit Nick.
Achso. Komm mal zu uns. Kevin, was magst du jetzt?
That is hard but necessary. That will lead to ultimate joy. I know it sounds like a lot, but no, I think I personally think that God put all of us on a global timeout. And we, you know, America hasn't done as good as other people when
Alles gut.
else is outplaying at recess. And we look
Komm mal, Kevin.
hoping and wishing we could come out. But I think that if we settle
Hm.
time out and really learn the lesson that we're supposed to learn from this season, I think we'll emerge better. We'll learn how to play well with others in more ways than one. And so personally for me, I'm taking this time to learn me in a new way. I feel like I'm being ushered into a new season.
Gib mir Geld.
Getting still. Because sometimes we confound the work that we're supposed to actually be doing. You know, we're busy doing stuff, but we got work that we need to do on the inside.
Okay.
Dang, I thought I was gonna be able to rest like everybody else.
You know what? And I think that's what everybody is saying about 2020. It's demanding that we be better. And you said it's a global timeout. What do you mean by that?
Also ich habe jetzt Ben gefragt, Melissa, Mine, Vanessa, Martin und Kiri.
But like, no, seriously, sit down and let's reevaluate things. Let us unearth and shake up the things that we have been trying to hide.
Halt die Leute, die an sich
Ey, was geht ab?
immer
Wir feiern die ganze Nacht.
All eyes on us, right? There is no, oh, I was in the subway for an hour so I didn't miss that thing that happened. No. Everybody was home. Everybody, you know, was watching when George Floyd died. And everybody, no one could hide.
Wie wir zwei so Geier mit Maske. Ich meine, stell dir mal vor, mit dieser Maske, ja?
Sit down,
Ach,
watch,
geil.
and let's learn. And globally, it's like,
Ich habe einfach zu laut gedacht, sorry, Kev.
business as usual,
Alles gut.
but it ain't usual no more. Like that's old.
Ich meinte, wann könnt ihr
Anytime
wieder?
change occurs, it's very
Freitag oder
uncomfortable.
Samstag?
And so right now we're sitting with the we're getting we're getting comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Das ist der Geld denn, ne?
We've been comfortable with being uncomfortable because that to me explains just the existence for whatever we want to do, how we
Kein
break into our
Video.
careers, how we live our lives, how we find ourselves one of the few or one of the first. And that's a lonely road. When you look at, and when you talk about this global timeout, everybody had to pay attention to Amy Cooper. Everyone had to pay attention to George Floyd. How is that helping us as a people, as a country during our global timeout?
I think, well, one, we're not minorities, Carrie. You already know it. It's like these labels that they put on us. It's like the same way of saying like black on black violence. Also, there's no white on white violence. It's branding.
Yeah,
right. It's all branding.
You're right.
And it's like white people kill white people every single day. So no, there is no black on black violence. And if you say black on black
Ja,
violence, then
jetzt
let's
fällt es
bring
alles
white on
wieder
white
gegen
violence.
uns,
Like
weißt
I
du.
watch Investigation Discovery. Ain't too many of us being featured.
Gesundheit! Hat er angedacht, wenn sie genießt hat.
Melissa kann gar nicht.
So,
Nina
and,
hat
you
auch
know, I
sofort
just
geantwortet,
even
aber ihr
like,
sieht schlecht aus.
but to answer your question, what does that do? I think what everyone expected is what has happened in the past when the world was still open,
Er
right?
fragt
In
wann,
that,
wann, wo
okay,
ungefähr und
you
dann
had
krieg ich's.
Lass es doch
from
beginnen.
Trayvon
Lass
Martin,
es
you
doch
had Julio to Sandra
beginnen.
Bland, you had all of these
Freitag
Das-
oder
laws.
Samstag jetzt gerade nicht, würdest du mit
And
gehen.
black people made some noise. You know, we rioted. We got out in the street.
Problem ist, ich
We
kann nicht
started the
abhauen.
Black Lives Matter movement. All of those things. And then after,
Und dann beginnt das. Und
white
ich bin nicht
people kind
da.
of like, oh, let's give them something.
Dann stellst du
Or
dir
and then it's just like,
da oben eine Kamera.
is it over? It's
Ich
like,
bin live.
Oscars so black.
Ich hoffe, das ist dir bewusst.
We gave you some Oscars. Are we good now? Like, are we even?
Würdest
You know,
du
and then
herkommen, für
now
mich
it's just
zur
like,
Tanke
oh
gehen,
no,
dann
no,
wieder
no, no,
herkommen,
no. This
zusammen
is
ein
not
Bier mit dir
about. This is
trinken?
not about like a bandit. It's like, yo,
Dann
we
können wir
might
uns
have to
treffen, dann
amputate the
standen
leg
dann
a little
hierher,
bit.
ja.
But it's all right because we're going by amputating
So.
the leg, we're gonna save the body. And so I think that's what's happening now. Like America is realizing, like, oh, black people aren't just making a little bit of noise. Like the protests are still out. The conversations are still being had. The change is still being demanded. And I think they're seeing, oh, this is not going
Ich habe
away.
zum Treffen
And no, it's
zur
not
Tanke
because
vor
we need
meine Tür
systematic
gehen.
change.
Ja, aber
What
kann
a
nicht lange
beautiful
wegbleiben.
way to explore what is happening and describe our country. We might have to amputate the leg, but that's to save the body. That's what's happening
Ich
right
dachte, du
now.
bist leicht, dann
That's
kannst
beautiful.
läuft das doch trotzdem.
And to that end, I have to ask you this, because the way that we do that, we use our voice, and our voice
Schon auf
right
Handy
now
gucken,
in this
ja.
world, in this country, is revoked. And everyone talks about voting and how important it is, but I feel
Auch
like
schon geil, wenn du so
we
Kopfhörer aufhast und
understand
nachher
it's
so
not
Musik
just
kommt, so.
about voting every 4 years for the man in office. It's about your local elections. It's about the
Wenn
mayor. It's
Musik
about
kommt.
the district attorney, the people who have the power to bring charges against police if police brutality is an issue in your community. If you care about your school district, you can run for the school board. I ask this of you, right? Your parents are from Nigeria.
Müssen
You
auf
are-
Englisch machen,
you
weil
talk about that very lovingly.
viele
What does voting mean?
Englische stehen, das ist
You
ja
know, I
die
think voting
Hauptsprache.
is
Zu
power.
ihm
I
fahren,
remember, you know, I
Fahrrad
became
holen, zur
naturalized
Tanke, Fahrrad zurück, kannst dir auch ein Bier holen, aber ihr müsst kein Bier zusammen trinken.
Because I was still a minor, my mom naturalized, and so we were able to do it under her. And just even that power,
Ey, wirklich, kein Bock dahin zu rennen, auch nicht.
all the access that we have by being citizens, one of those accesses and those access to power being voting. It's a big deal. It's a big
Geh
deal.
jetzt gleich
because
raus und
not only
zock.
do we have the opportunity to be in this country, but now we can be of the country. We can be of the systems. We can be of the rules. We can be of what it actually affords. But I think going back to your earlier comment about just the setup of
Für mich?
systems, I think we are done a disservice. Either it's schools or whatever it is, and I'm not putting teachers on blast. I think teachers do a phenomenal job, but for some reason we do not, and give them all the raises. I
Versuch
know
mal hier
parents who are
Nickchen.
like, I might
Nickchen.
Fuck, der Pisser ist mir überhaupt nicht Scheiß
Where can I drop them off? And I do think that there's a disservice done because, again,
Auch nicht schlecht.
to your point, we talk about every 4 years. It's important to vote for the presidency. We don't realize, like, oh, snap, we actually can vote about, like, how much our libraries get. It's like small things like that, but they make a big difference.
When you think of voter suppression in this country, what does it look like?
It's the system. When we talk about voter suppression, we also talk about systematic racism, right? It's all the systems that set up. And we've
Das,
normalized,
das
okay,
Gerede geht mir
maybe
wirklich so
your job
auf
will
den
be your
Senkel.
last day, or maybe, you know, you'll be able to get this
Seht ihr
luxury.
mich?
It shouldn't be a luxury. It should be
Nein.
built into the system. It should be built into the fabric of how we vote. But maybe you'll be able to get this luxury in order to enable you to go vote.
Kevin, schau mal schnell zu mir. Achso, man kann ja nicht tanzen.
Marginalized black person has to endure in a day. So in a day, you need to get to work. If something happens to your car, if something happens to your child care, if something happens to, there's so many factors along the way that can send you into a failure as an American. And then you add on as a person of color. If you're just trying to get the vote and you already have to go through all of these hurdles and hoops in your everyday life, imagine the one day when your voice really is supposed to matter the most in this country, but then you also see all the times that you tried to have your voice matter. and then it's shut down.
Nick, schau mal hier.
DC wrong. Ich hoffe, ich komme da wieder auf den Berg.
Also,
Ja.
ja, dann komm aber her zum Tabakö und dann rauchen wir uns noch eine. Ich habe gesagt, Freitag oder Samstag kann halt 3 oder 4 Bier haben. Ist ungefähr am Wert von Tabak. Oder nicht?
Kann mal, wie viel er gibt.
Give it to me. Colonization.
Ich hoffe, da passiert noch was, sonst lohnt sich das echt nicht.
I mean, the history of black people in this country is at one point we
Ich glaube, die quatschen jetzt noch eine knappe halbe Stunde oder so. Und dann geht's los.
that was a written law. And look at us now. We are whole. We are black girl magic. We are black boy joy. We are, you know what I'm saying? What I think about in terms of
Sie
giving
liegt
them
auf dem
talk,
Bett.
right?
Sorry, Vicky.
We're making a lot of people nervous right
Ja,
now.
wir können
Barry.
das
We're making a lot of people nervous right now because they're like,
Jungs,
dang, we put all
Jo.
these obstacles
ich bin gleich wieder da, ne? Ich gehe kurz zum Kumpel, was abholen, dann rauche ich mit ihm noch ein und bin wieder da.
Ja, ja.
Aber ich gucke beim Livestream von mir zu. Sonst
Was? Kev.
ich gucke bei meinem Livestream trotzdem weiterhin zu. Ihr Handy. Wenn was passiert, krieg ich's wenigstens mit. Oh, Entschuldige.
Diese zum Cherry.
Nein, zum anderen. Kumpel. Ich guck live über mein Handy mit. Ne, bis gleich.
I feel like back in the day,
Bis
we had an
gleich.
idea. Yes, it is marching. Yes, it is protesting. Yes, it is speaking out against things that we feel are not right or unjust. But talk to me about what activism looks like for Yvonne Orji.
Listen, activism, I think the beauty of activism is that it has many faces, right?
Ob die da jetzt
You're
alle
going to
da
have
auf
the
dem
people on the front
Stein
lines.
daddeln,
Like,
Alter.
you know what? Martin Luther King marched, but there were a lot of women who were in the homes like, hey, BT Dubs, when they come back, this is how we support all the people who are marching on the front lines. And we're going to be here doing what we know to do best here. And you know what? Somebody needs to bail them out of jail so now we need to be in the community, getting money or whatever it is. So it's like everybody has a position to play. And so play your position like a shortstop, bruh. So whoever you are and whatever you do, play your position. So activism could look like, you know what? I'm not the one that's built to be on the front line, but you know what? My pockets go deep, so I'm gonna support the people on the front line. You know, I'm a comedian. Black joy is a form of activism.
There's always a call for entertainers or celebrities that have the platform to do something. Why aren't you speaking out? I'm not a believer in thinking that it's mandatory. Like you said, everyone can be activated in different ways. But talk to me about the connection. Talk to me about the
Der war
marginalization in your
mies.
world and how you feel like it even inspires you to say more and use your platform to do more.
Beneath the surface of what we do, like Niecy Nash said,
Nick?
it's the who, right? The who is the person who's going to be like, hey, let me call this out. Either blind racism in terms overt racism in terms of ways that we can be better, in terms of ways that we can actually be more uplifting to the community that you may not even realize that you're serving.
Before I let you go, talk to me about the urgency, in your opinion, for people,
30 Minuten.
our people, to get out and vote this coming election.
Yeah, I mean, guys, if you think you're tired now, I'm telling you right now, we cannot take this sitting down. We can't take this jokingly. I understand that it may be hard to figure out who to vote for, but at the end of the day, we got to vote for our families. We got to vote for our legacies. We got to vote for continued progress. We have to vote for upward mobility. We have to vote for equality in a way that is long lasting. And if we succeeded before, we can do it again. You talk about the whole, this is the time. This is not the time to give up. This is not the time to pretend a way that we haven't made progress. We have. There's still much more to be done. And you know what? We might have to get to a point where we pass the baton to our children and our children's children, but we still have work to do now for that generation.
Yvonne Orgy, you are everything. You are Molly, but you are not Molly, but I love you so much as Molly on HBO's Insecure. You are an amazing podcaster, Jesus and Joloff. Shout out to Lovey. And then we also have movies. Like you, The World, you're a model, a cover model. Also, wait, don't let me forget your hugely successful stand-up comedy special on HBO. Girl, you doing it all. And I am so grateful. You're truly the dream, not just the American dream. You're the black girl, brown girl, do it all dream, the immigrant dream, everything. You're a beautiful, beautiful soul. I really, really mean that from the bottom of my heart. Yvonne Orgy, ladies and gentlemen, nothing but the best and excellence personified. Thank you so much, my friend.
I love you so much, Mama. Mwah.
Yeah, la la.
So Atlanta has been one of the hotbeds in terms of political unrest and social injustice. We've seen so much happen in that city, and we've also seen so much come from that city, including one of our very own founding fathers of the civil rights movement, and that's Martin Luther King Jr. But right now, we want to welcome in someone who has used his platform to talk about voting, to talk about racial injustice, and how he's trying to help. Atlanta's very own Russ joins us now on We the People. Russ, I'm not going to fan out and tell you what some of my favorite songs were that I listened to repeat on yours. We're going to get to the topic at hand. So we got to talk about, recently you did an interview where you shared your outlook on culture and music. And you also were very candid about the fact that you have a privilege and that it's necessary for you to give back. Tell everybody about what that means.
It's very obvious I'm white and I'm in Black culture and I'm benefiting financially off of it. So I feel like if you're a white person financially benefiting off of Black culture, you have to put finances back into Black culture. It's just that simple. The screenshots with your feelings, it just comes off like fake empathy because it comes off very dismissive and very oh, that sucks for y'all, but anyway, back to what I was doing.
Have you felt that way always, or is it now because of the time of where we are in this country?
I've always had the feeling. I think now it's just obviously elevated. It's a new level, and there's new, it's to the point now where you can't. First of all, you can't not say anything. Second of all, though, I just think saying something isn't enough anymore. I think, if you have the ability to put money back into a culture that you're financially benefiting from, you have the ability to, you should.
It's interesting that you talk about it in that way because some people do believe that silence is the best way to go because it's hard to talk race, especially if you're white and you're in the Black culture. People just feel as if they can't talk about it. They feel awkward. They feel as if they don't have the privilege or the voice or the words. How do you find yourself right now in terms of interacting with people when they want to talk to you about social injustice, police brutality, what's going on in this country right now?
Well, first of all, picking and choosing whether you want to be silent or not about race, that's a privilege in and of itself. But no, I mean, I try to just do my best to listen to the Black people around me and the educated Black people I have in my life. So I do my best to not act like I have all the answers for everything, especially in a culture that I'm not from. But that's why when we decided to raise the money for Black Lives Matter organizations, when we raised $500,000, we got on the phone with some of the women who started Black Lives Matter. I got on the phone with Tamika Mallory. I was on the phone with Karen Civil and talking with my friends to make sure the money went to like the correct places, and people who really need it. It's just about listening. That's all. It's about listening.
Let's talk about that for a moment because the way I think of activism, for me, it looks very differently. It's not necessarily just protesting on the front lines. I think that's great. But what about being an activist in the way in which you have decided to be one? What inspired you? What did it look like? You said you raised money for Black Lives Matter. What did you do? Walk us through everything that you did and how you find yourself.
Hast du es gesehen, was ich machen wollte?
So for me, it was 3 years ago, I had like a string of festivals and I decided that I was going to wear t-shirts with a message on them because I figured what better time to use a platform than in front of, a bunch of people. So one of the t-shirts I wore was, if you want to change the system, speak up, white silence is pro-racism, the whole thing. And it didn't really it kind of got swept under the rug back then. But when all this stuff started happening again, and it's been happening, the police brutality against innocent black people. I was like, man, I'm not the biggest artist in the world, and I certainly don't have the most white fans in the world, but I got a good amount of people that I can definitely mobilize and turn into some money. And I know they're down for the cause because it's merch, it's a good thing. And I've always been outspoken anyway, you know. And so, how am I going to be in black culture and not be outspoken about racism?
And then I got to ask you this because you grew up in Atlanta, so that gives you a heads up, depending for so many people, because you're in the crux of that beautiful black city where there are so many wonderful black leaders, home of so much great music and things that speak to our culture right now. And we are really, really getting our word out, especially with this platform today, and saying that we must use our voice to vote. Talk to me about what the importance of voting for you in this upcoming election.
Yeah, so full transparency, I had never voted before, ever. And because, I was one of those people who was like, my vote doesn't matter. And, I don't know, maybe it's because I was younger, maybe it's because I really thought that, or I don't know, but I just think that it's got to, now this is a bit of a privilege to say it's got to a breaking point for me, because obviously it's been past the breaking point for black people. But I think that as a whole, the young people need to get out and vote, because we're the ones that never show up. You know what I mean? We never show up to vote, but we're the future. So it's like, look, we got to go out there and vote, and then whatever happens, but at least we did our part. You got to do your part.
You're very candid in saying that you just decided to vote, and I think there's a beautiful irony in the fact that you have your fans saying, because of you, I'm voting. Right. And there's something beautiful about that. But I want to know why now for you. Why in this moment is it important for you to vote? And what hit your spirit to say, yes, this is the time to do it?
Honestly, because I think that George Floyd really woke up a lot of people who, including myself, who I was vocal and outspoken about racism. I put it in my lyrics. I put it on T-shirts. I would talk about it in interviews. Like, I was vocal about it. But that video in that moment, I think me, along with a lot of other people, just kind of was like, all right, like, words are simply not enough anymore. We gotta do something, whether it's raising money, whether it's voting, or all the above. Like, we got to do something, and I'm ashamed that it took that for me to be like, I need to raise money and I need to vote. It's a shame, and I don't know. I guess it snapped a bunch of people out of it. And even if you were vocal and whatnot, it's time to actually put your money where your mouth is. It's time to go vote. It's time to just stop talking about it and be about it. And it's been time for that, but like I said, I'm ashamed that it took me this long to actually really, really be about it, but I'm here now.
So Russ, we all know that this is going to be your first time voting. Tell me what that experience is going to be like in terms of what you're excited about.
I think what it's going to do for me. It's going to let me know that I'm contributing to something bigger than myself, and I'm actually putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm being about it. Because for so long, and I know I'm not alone with this, but standing on the outside and just screaming about this and that and this should change, and it's like, all right, but did you vote? And so I know it's gonna feel good to know that I played a small role, and that's the problem. I think the mentality of like, my vote doesn't matter needs to be changed to, my vote, albeit small, does matter. It's a role I'm playing, and if I play my part and you play your part and he and she plays their part, then we make a difference. But it'll feel, I have a feeling it's gonna feel very, very bigger than me. I think when you realize that giving actually feels better than receiving, that's when you start wanting to do your part and contribute. So voting is an easy way to give.
Yeah, to whom much is given, much is required, and you have been given a huge platform, and we are so grateful for you, Russ. Philanthropist, artist, community activist, first-time voter. We appreciate you for doing this, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, la.
So cities like Atlanta and Chicago have been at the forefront of the discussions, especially now in this country when we're talking about COVID-19 and systemic racism, as well as police brutality and what we can do in this country. Again, we're continuing our conversation, letting you know that your voice is your vote and your vote is your voice. We can change where we are in this country. Currently, I'd like to welcome in Chicago Cubs right fielder Jason Hayward. I appreciate you. I brought in Atlanta and Chicago because I know you grew up in the metropolitan area of Atlanta, more specifically McDonough. Let's be technical, and you have been very vocal throughout this entire time in terms of what our country's been experiencing. Let's look at the past month and a half, if you will. What has been the hardest thing for you to deal with?
The hardest thing for me to deal with, Carrie, this last month has just been going from the virus shutting everything down to us being called to action. We've had multiple police brutality situations. We've had people protesting, wanting to get the message out. But I really realized that I need to be a part of the positive message and make sure that doesn't get lost in all the chaos going on, for people to actually hear from a reasonable, respectable person who cares about everyone involved.
A reasonable, respectable person who cares about everyone involved, which leads us to More Than a Vote. It is a beautiful collective of Black athletes and artists. You are a part of that. Talk to me about why that's important for you right now and to be a part of that collective.
To me personally, it's important to be a part of that because I've somewhat used baseball and my craft as an excuse to not get more involved in voting. But I can't any longer use baseball and work as an excuse not to get educated, and not also to show people, like, at any moment in time, any walk of life, we can make a difference. So
tell me in your words, what does activism look like for you?
In my words, it looks like LeBron James, the biggest athlete right now on the planet, speaking up and breaking the ice for everyone. And I think for the first time, people see and hear from us. So now we have white teammates, we have other people speaking up and realizing, okay, like, this is how we go about doing this. And to me right now, social media, athletes speaking up, entertainers speaking up, like we're trying to do with More Than a Vote.
You said something I thought was so key, because covering sports for so long, I know that it's tough for Black players specifically in Major League Baseball to talk about how they feel. Adam Jones did it in a very eloquent way early on, but there are very few that are vocal. You said you all were afraid. Why use that word, and why were you afraid?
You was afraid because in 2019, there were 68 of us total. And there are 38 teams. There's 25-man roster on each team. There's a 40-man roster, which is on each team as well. And there aren't many of us. So we're outnumbered in that sense, but not always in a negative way when it comes to our teammates and our clubhouses. But to get to this point, you have to move a certain way. You got to be careful what you say. You can't ruffle feathers. You can't come off in any way. Much like other Black entertainers, much like yourself, probably having to live through life every day. But to get to the highest level, you got to button up. You got to be seen and not heard. So baseball, like I said, it was time for us to try and speak up and make a difference and show it's okay to do so, because we can't be quiet any longer.
That is a button up, be quiet, be seen but not heard. That is an expression that a lot of Black folks can relate to in whatever aspect of professionalism that they experience, especially if they don't work for themselves. They just feel that. That is also a socialization that we have as Black folks, especially, like you said, if you want to get to the higher level. And for so long, I felt it bubbling right underneath the surface that so many of us who were in whatever positions we were, who had platforms, were tired of pretending and looking the other way and spending so much time making others comfortable while we were uncomfortable. Do you feel that this is the type of movement that is sustainable, or is it just for a time?
No, it takes everyone joining in on the conversation. And right now, I feel like more than ever, there is little things as possible to distract from bigger issues. And we saw on draft day, we saw our president, Theo Epstein, holding up the sign saying Black Lives Matter and wanting to include the rest of MLB in that. But now we're having those conversations as well. So I definitely think this is sustainable, and it's not always just going to be the popular thing to do. This is something that people want to get right because they know we care.
Jason, you said you think it's sustainable, that what you're seeing, especially with your colleagues in baseball, that this can be something where you're feeling more comfortable, feeling more safe to share how you feel about social injustice and police brutality. What are you doing right now in this moment with your platform to help change how we look at voting and how to educate the culture and the community about voting?
Well, first, what I'm doing, Carrie, is joining up with More Than a Vote and joining up with other athletes and entertainers to get that message out and use our platform in that sense as a group. And try to create a brand with this to make it something that's not just about the election coming, make sure that it's about people getting educated for years to come and figure out where to vote and how to vote. We've got people in different areas that cover different demographics and influence different areas of people. And as a baseball player, as a black baseball player, I feel like now, like we talked about, is finally the time to show people that you can use your voice in this profession. You don't have to be afraid. And to me, that can help someone, help a kid growing up. He can see me, he can see other guys that were in the video we posted saying, hey, this is what they're standing for. They're speaking up for these things, and it's okay to want to play baseball. It's not lame. It's not something I have to be as afraid of as I was before. So I feel like that's my role in this. I have a younger brother as well. He's 24. He also plays baseball. So I've got to lead by example. I can't just always, come up with a good answer that sounds good on TV when I get asked a question on, what do we need to do to make changes. So I'm joining up here to make sure that I take action and get educated myself. For one, so many people, I feel like in Atlanta, they're on the move. Or when you want to try to make a vote and try and cast your vote, you have to do it by mail. You have to sign up for the absentee ballot. Then you have to get another ballot in return. They have to send it back to you. Well, for me personally, they didn't send that back until it was too late, right? We didn't get it in the mail to the address that's an Atlanta address at my parents' house. We didn't get that in the mail until it was too late. And then from other friends and family that are still in Georgia right now, I just hear about them being held in lines too long and trying to get off work. And we know how it is for any family, but let alone a black family in the city or in the suburbs trying to take care of their family and trying to provide for them. You try to get off work, and then you're like, wait a minute. You start looking at the clock. It's like, oh, this is not going to happen today, right? And so I saw, Mayor Keisha Bottoms, reach out via social media to people and say, hey, I'm going to address these issues right now. I need y'all to stay in line to cast your votes. Keep hanging in there. So to me in Georgia, that's what that looks like.
Well, it's interesting that you even bring that up because there have been all these images specifically from Georgia, because that's such a battleground, where you see people, especially when it came to the primaries, doing whatever it takes. And this is real life voter suppression that you're talking about. It's been happening for decades. It's not fake. What you're saying, these examples of sending you your ballot too late after the fact or shutting down the polls at 6 o'clock while people still are in line, that's a real life issue. There needs to be some type of change. And I think that what we're doing right now is fair. But the idea of voter suppression, do you think that is well known, especially with folks, within the generation, your generation?
I think it's known in our communities, right? I don't think it's spoke on enough. I don't think there's been enough light drawn to it. Bring it to light. Let people hear about it. Let people learn about what that looks like. And get more people to say, okay, look, like this is going to happen. We have to expect this, and we can no longer make the excuse. We can't say they didn't warn us.
Jason, everybody knows, or it feels as if everyone knows, that the time is now. America's paying attention to us. We have their eyes. We have their ears. If you look toward the future, what are you most excited about in terms of seeing a change?
I'm excited about how fast the word is traveling. The word is being spread right now. The biggest athletes, the biggest icons, biggest entertainers are doing their part, but I'm also seeing people out there on the streets doing their part. When so many things got lost, could have very easily got in the commotion when it came to protests, and you saw rioting, you saw looting. People still stood their ground, and people still went out there and said, look, we're doing this for the right reasons. We're going to come together. We're going to use drones. We're going to use social medias. I feel like this is a new wave of getting things done the right way and just spreading the message.
You're right about that. And you're right. People are spreading the word unapologetically. We out here. We doubling down. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Right.
Yeah, la.
Hey, everybody. I am so excited to welcome a friend, a brother, family member, if you will, former colleague, NBA great, sports analyst, philanthropist. He does it all. Eddie's here to give us his time and his platform to talk about something that is so important, that is voting. Everybody, welcome Jalen Rose to We the People. Talk to me about how important it is for the people who know you and love you and look up to you. Why is it so important that you use your platform to talk about voting?
Initially, we have to get past the stigma of the mental systemic racism that comes with the presidential race, governors, mayors, senators, judges. We've been conditioned to believe that our vote does not matter. So usually when we looked up at all of those races and people that were running, not only did they not look like us, we didn't believe they were there to represent our best interests. So therefore, as a collective, we didn't mobilize until Barack Obama, and we felt a sense of hope that finally our country is going to do something that we felt would never happen in our lifetime. And I remember being at the inauguration in 2008. I made sure I was there. And we voted. In 2016, we didn't vote, Carrie. We didn't vote. And so many people try to make this political. This is not political. Me telling somebody to vote is like telling somebody to pay taxes. So that's one, getting over the stigma of nobody is going to represent our best interest. And then number two, the reality is that the person that gets the most votes doesn't necessarily win the presidency. That's uncomfortable right there, because that's actually what took place in 2016. The Electoral College chose the president. And if you put all of their pictures up, I'm pretty sure they look a lot more like each other than they look like you and I. How about that? And then the third thing, especially in urban environments, oh man, they create barriers for us, Carrie. It's like you got to jump over the fence, you got to run past the dog, you got to jump on the hood of the car. The lines is 5 hours long. You get up
Moin
to
Leute, ich bin wieder
the
da.
poll and they don't work. Elderly people working in the city.
Was
They
ist
got the
Schönes
younger
passiert?
people who understand technology working
Nix,
in the
Digga.
suburb.
Ding
Like
beginnt
these are all
gleich, Event.
systematic things
Nach
that try
dem.
to discourage us from voting.
Beginnt das Event.
And then finally,
Mhm.
we don't have a day off to vote. We need to work. So we don't get a day off. It's gonna be a full day. Then I gotta work on it. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna miss the vote. And you know what you want people to realize is that you don't have to do. So your vote counts is your vote. Those are a few things that I hope that we can do and mobilize and
Digga,
his team.
das ist
Ja,
lautes.
You and
ne, dann dauert es noch
everybody
13
involved, we
Minuten.
will make it work.
Dann ist Ende.
Let's talk about more than a vote. There is a black collective of athletes, of artists,
Ne,
coming
keine
together and
13
saying
Minuten.
voter suppression is a real deal, especially in the black community. When you just talked about, I gotta work, so I can't go vote. And then when we do get in the booth, just in case we don't have to work, do we know who we're voting for? Not only do we have to vote, we gotta be educated. And it's not always even about the man who's in office or the woman who's in office for president. It's about your local elections. It's about the people who are your DAs, your state DAs, like the people who actually make change in your community, who will change police brutality, who will make sure that your community is taken care of, who will defund police and hope that they can help you in stopping police brutality. So talk to me about why you decided to be a part of More Than a Vote and what it actually means.
Well, it means a lot to be involved with such an impressive group as you mentioned. And
Part startet in 5 Minuten.
I know it can be uncomfortable when I
Alles klar.
say it, but a lot of times
Bin ich noch
we have
pünktlich?
to get to the root of the issue before we find
Nee,
a
ich hoffe
solution.
mal. Das wird heute was.
The quote was, I wish America loved black people as much as it loves
So,
black
man.
culture. And this collective, by the way, represents in a lot of ways what's encouraging, but also sometimes disappointing about
Nick?
our role as black people in America. Because we were brought here as labor.
Wenn er 5 Minuten da sind, so.
And we use those vehicles to get paid and move to the suburbs and be idols of white kids. And so now that we have this collective, I would say
So, Leute.
I'm talking about money, power, celebrity, the ability to mobilize, community involvement,
Man halt
their
ganz
leadership, their
genau,
intellect.
wo
And
man
so
stehen
to
muss.
have all of us pulling in the same direction at the same time for anything that we're passionate about is going to be a difference maker, but it's definitely going to be a difference maker in the 2020 vote because we're going to make sure we inform everybody that they can let their voice be heard, and failure is not an option.
Jalen, what is voter suppression look like?
A perfect example took place recently, Kerry, in Kentucky. It was 6 p.m. at night, and so many people were standing in line enthusiastic to vote. And you know what they did? Locked the doors. And you know what the people did? They continued to bang on the doors, continued to bang on the windows. They continued to let it be known they were not going to leave the
Ich bin nicht mehr in der
premises
Party
until
drinne.
they got a chance to vote.
Also ich bin
And
Spielchat.
you know what ended up happening? They opened those doors and allowed
Warum hören wir Nick nicht?
to
Wir sind noch nicht in, wir sind noch gar nicht in der Party drinne. Also ich nicht.
and we're here to help you break through. The same thing with our platform.
Ist ja lost. 7 Kommentare, lesen wir mal durch. Sorry, dass ich eben kurz weg war, Leute. Mein Kanal live.
But it's still up to us to keep making sure that our voices get heard, and this is one way to do so.
Right, and that is a form of being activated, being an activist. It doesn't have to be protesting. It doesn't have to look like what you think
Ehre.
traditionally activism looks like. It's voting. It's that simple.
Ich habe 7 Daumen gekriegt, aber leider nur nach unten.
Critical mass moment for this movement
Ja,
to
besser
continue
nicht,
to
oder?
hold up as much steam for as long as possible. And that's what this collection is going to hopefully allow for that situation to happen.
Jalen, in today's age of technology, it should be easier to vote.
No doubt. It's like
Schreibt ruhig einen
all
Kommentar.
these devices, smartphones, and yet I can't vote.
Würde mich freuen über einen Daumen nach oben,
All of the
wenn ihr
things
mehr
that we do in our lives,
Livestreams haben wollt.
all of
Sei
these
so.
barriers are things that
Mal mitspielen wollt.
we'll need to overcome in order to
Hier ist
create a
Kevin.
level of enthusiasm to vote. And again, this
Beginnt
is not
gleich.
political. It's your right to do so. And there's so many times where you
Geht jetzt schon
feel like
51 Minuten.
somebody may have gotten done
2 Minuten nach dem Beginn
injustice in
erst.
your community. Pay attention to who the
Stand hier
judges
oben.
are, who's running for Senate, Mayor, Governor. Pay attention. Who's running
Kann ich jetzt
for
mal keinen
president.
Tanz machen
And
kann.
let's make sure in 2020 we make a difference.
60 Sekunden,
Why is
59,
more than a vote
57, 56, 55.
valuable in our community right now?
Was muss man da machen? Weißt du schon was, Kev?
I think we have an opportunity to let our voices be heard louder than ever. Anytime you see the mobilization
Ja,
of white kids holding Black Lives Matter signs, that means
Nicht.
there's a
Also
breakthrough.
jetzt einfach aufdrücken, nochmal aufdrücken.
Now,
YouTube.
what happens with that breakthrough
warum willst du auch zu gucken?
is the next step. You're gonna look down in your email,
Hmm?
Carrie. You're gonna see all of these companies telling you how they're gonna work on their diversity, how they're looking themselves in the mirror. They need to make change,
Einfach auf
just
Kevin
like in
draufdrücken.
sports, right? Look on the field and on the court, all those black players. Further you get up, it's like altitude or a ladder. It gets thinner and thinner. And so a lot of people talk about the system being broken. I hate to remind people that it's not broken, it was built this way.
Propaganda,
And one of
Anton.
our ways to help change
Kevin bereitdrücken.
is
Jo, mache der. Nick auch.
that's why more than a vote is so very important. So we can make sure everybody participates and gives themselves an opportunity to let their voice be heard.
I think it's interesting because you talk
Ist Nick
about
überhaupt bereit?
black men being very
Ja.
powerful in the U.S. if they're athletes and entertainers.
Komisch, wir hören ihn aber
So
nicht.
those have been the only avenues traditionally to create wealth. The NBA season comes back. What are your feelings on the season coming back in the midst of everything that is happening?
I think you'll see players challenging the establishment more. You're going to see them saying, okay, if you have all of these marketing and promotional deals, how many of them are with minorities? How many people are you employing?
Jawohl, jetzt
Und
beginnt's.
es geht los. Ich freue mich
Was muss ich
richtig.
machen?
Das weiß ich selber nicht. Ob dass jetzt Musik kommt oder sowas. Ich hoffe.
Okay.
Ist egal. Haben wir was zum Aschen? Ist leicht auszuwaschen. Lädt es immer noch bei dir?
Ja. Bei dir auch.
Beziehungsweise wie magst du eine Tüte rummachen?
Okay, Kev, ich komme zu dir, okay?
Ich bin noch nicht drinne.
Du hast mir aber schon angezeigt.
Was jetzt? Was müssen wir jetzt machen?
Keine Ahnung, Digga.
Das war's mit dem Event oder was?
Gehen wir einfach mal noch mal hin, oder? Schauen wir noch mal.
Da müssen wir hin, ja. Aber irgendwie... Ich hoffe mal, dass es jetzt nicht Ende war. Wenn ja, dann war es echt scheiße. Das Event.
Ja.
Was sieht's aus, wenn es gleich anfängt? Die Frau redet immer noch.
Ja.
Aber es wird gleich anfangen. Ja.
That is your voice. It is important. We, the people, want you to vote. So, go to morethanavote.org, fairfight.com, and
Ich hoffe, es beginnt gleich.
again, thank you so much for joining us and
Ist doch
paying
weiter.
attention, because this message, again, is
Wollen wir
invaluable.
jetzt für morgen gleich
I'm
mitmachen?
Carrie Champion for We the People.
Ich wollte sagen, wir morgen eher arbeiten, dann können wir nach einem Stoff versuchen. Gucken. Beginnt jetzt, Ehre.
People, Hip-Hop-Musik. Viel Spaß.
Ist Nick hier? Ja, Nick ist neben mir. Warum verlassen wir das jetzt zu Ende oder was? Für ja war es echt kacke.
Oder andere Seite. Schauen wir mal.
Dann geh mal gucken. Ich glaube eher weniger, oder? Ne, ne, kommt auch mit. Ne, ich irgendwie. Von der anderen Seite ist auch Licht. Und sowas. Scheiß drauf. Mal ist noch einmal, ja. Nick, hörst du uns wieder? Oh nee, ich muss ja echt... Oh, ist das lost. Ne, andere Seite zeigt auch nichts an. Aber es ist Schwarzbildschirm. Pepsi.
Direkt. Die sieht man am, die erkennt man am Geruch.
Guck mal, er zeigt hier nichts an. Black Screen. Ja, ich glaube, es hier gleich beginnt. Stehst du ab wenigstens? Musst du nicht hier mitkriegen, was wir hier machen? Für illegale krumme Dinge, Kappa. Nee, ich mag keine illegalen Dinge, das ist schon kacke, wenn man so macht. Macht man einfach nicht.
Was?
Illegale Dinge macht man nicht. Wirklich die ganze Zeit hier im Kreis. Ich hoffe, das war es jetzt nicht mit dem Event. Wenn's überhaupt nicht, ich finde es nicht, es war kein Event. Das hätten sie irgendwie besser machen können. Schon, ja.
Schauen wir mal auf die andere Seite.
Ja, renn mal rüber, ich habe keinen Bock jetzt hier die ganze Zeit hin und her zu rennen. Menschenskin ist das hier lost heute. Mal schauen, dass ich vorhin kurz weg war, Livestream. Musste aber kurz was erledigen für 10 Minuten. Ich habe mich extra beeilt. Ich wollte euch wenigstens das Live-Event noch mitgeben. Was hier alles Schönes passiert. Aber hat man ja gesehen, war ja nichts Tolles. Wenn jetzt nichts passiert mehr, dann...
Nö, gar nichts ist.
Dann das Lobby, du. Hm?
Sonst so einen Scheiß gemacht.
Seid ihr in der Lobby?
Ja.
Kevin, Digga, du bist echt dumm. Weißt du das?
Warum?
Weißt du, dass du dumm bist?
Warum?
Jetzt kommt's, Alter.
War es jetzt ernsthaft das letzte? Also war es jetzt das Event oder was? Nick. Nick schon wieder lost oder was? Was soll das denn sein?
Rote Jade. Rote Jade ist drin.
Nick, war es das jetzt mit dem Event? Hör auf damit, Nick. Kick ich dich.
Nick, sein Ding ist wieder in Angebot.
Aber der Item Shop ist neu, vielleicht hole ich mir was. Rote Jada. Ist nichts krasses bei.
Kevin?
Ja.
Rote Jade heißt es, nicht Jade. Ah, geil.
Ich finde die nicht so krass.
Ich schon. Digga, muss. Verstehst du? Muss.
Also was jetzt wirklich ernsthaft war mit dem Event, Alter, ist das Kacke gewesen.
Ja, aber richtige Krütze, Alter. Hätten die sich in meiner Meinung nach sparen können. Also halt. Nicht das, weißt schon, was ich meine, Kevin. Nichts wegen dem Rassismus oder so, das toleriere ich nicht, dass Menschen Rassisten sind, aber, ja, das war jetzt, ich habe jetzt mehr erhofft, sagen wir mal.
Ich dachte, da kommt wenigstens noch Musik oder so, aber nee, das kam nur dieses Gelaber.
Wir gehen nochmal auf die Startseite, also auf die...
Komm, gehen wir mal nochmal dorthin.
Hm?
Ich will mal auf irgendwo rauszugehen.
Kevin.
Ja, jetzt steht er...
Kevin?
Was ist das?
Ja, meinte ich eigentlich, aber da ist nichts dran.
Hey, das hier meinst du, ne?
ich glaub, weißt du, was das Event ist? Lebensraub. Teams, glaube ich.
Meinst du das hier, Schatz?
Nein.
Was denn?
Ja, jetzt ist auch egal, jetzt weiß ich es nicht.
Oder das hier?
Ja.
Wollen wir jetzt eine Runde spielen oder nicht? Bist du noch am Start, Nick?
Aber wieso hört man den Nick nicht?
Alter, ist das schon wieder lost, ne? Scheiß Xbox-Spieler.
Ja, Mann. Echt.
Kannst du auch reden? Ich und Kevin verstehen uns.
Ja.
Wir sind gar nicht in der Party. Bist du besoffen oder sowas?
Wir sind im Spielchat.
Ich bin nicht mal in irgendeiner Party drinne. Du bei uns auch nicht. Wir schon im Spielen, also im Game.
Jo.
Guck doch mein Livestream, dann siehst du es doch.
Jo.
Nein, das siehst du unten links im Game, dass wir in Game sprechen.
Ja.
Du hast von nur irgendwelche Quietschgeräusche gemacht. So. Und dann wir haben nicht gehört von dir. Da starten wir das Spiel mal neu. Warum willst du pennen? Ja, warte mal, sonst probieren wir es aus. Ich beende das Livestream jetzt. Haut rein, Leute, und bis morgen oder übermorgen. Ihr werdet über Instagram informiert. Beziehungsweise ich mache eine Story auf YouTube, damit ihr Bescheid wisst. Und